The call came through on a satellite phone, crackling with static that could barely mask Sarah's distress. I was in a small, windowless concrete room outside Kandahar, reviewing aerial reconnaissance photos. The air conditioning unit hummed loudly, a constant drone against the distant thud of artillery practice. Sarah's voice, tight and quick, listed facts, Brenda's recent patterns, the frequent evenings out, the name Roger Henderson. My sister was usually steady, but her tone now had a sharp edge of alarm I recognized. She said Brenda was spending an unusual amount of time away from the house, often returning late. Roger Henderson. I filed the name away, a new data point in a landscape I thought I knew. I asked a few precise questions about times and specific instances. Sarah provided what she could, her answers laced with a frustrated sadness. I listened, my mind cataloging the details, separating the emotional content from the raw information. My military training had instilled a structured approach to problem solving. This was a new kind of problem, but the methodology remained relevant. I put in a request for emergency family leave, 30 days. The paperwork was standard, the reasons listed as personal and compelling. My commanding officer, a man who had seen two Mohammed Shukada, offered a brief nod of understanding. He asked no questions. I packed a single duffel bag, my thoughts already halfway across the globe, processing the logistics of travel, the transition from this stark, sand-colored world to the green familiarity of home. The flight was long, a blur of time zones and recycled air. 26 hours of commercial travel, ending in a rental car at the closest major airport. I drove the familiar highway back to our town, the landscape shifting from flat, featureless plains to rolling hills and scattered tracts of farmland. It was late Friday evening when I finally approached the neighborhood, the streetlights casting long shadows. I parked half a block from the house, on the opposite side of the street, positioning the rental car to provide a clear view without drawing attention. The engine cooled with soft ticking sounds. The lights were on in the living room, a soft glow behind the curtains. The kitchen light was also on, and a sliver of light escaped from the master suite upstairs. The house looked normal from the outside, a picture of domestic quiet. This was the house I had built, room by room, with my own hands. I picked up my phone, scrolled to Sarah's contact, and made the call. "She's getting ready," Sarah said, her voice lower now, almost a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might conjure something. I heard her in the kitchen, making too much noise for just one person. "She's been in and out of the bedroom for an hour. There's a new dress she bought last week. She's wearing it." The unusual excitement Sarah described, the meticulous preparations, it all fit a pattern. Sarah sounded defeated. "I told you, Frank, something's wrong." "Just observe, Sarah," I told her, my voice low and even. "Do not engage. We need to gather information, not create a scene." My words were a directive, calm and factual. She sighed, a small sad sound. I knew she understood. We both knew the weight of evidence. At precisely 7 p.m., a black Mercedes, a newer model, pulled into the driveway. The headlights cut through the evening gloom, illuminating the front of the house. A man emerged from the driver's side. He was tall, well-built, with dark hair. Roger Henderson. I confirmed the details in my mind. He moved with a confident stride toward the front door. Brenda appeared seconds later, stepping out onto the porch. She looked different, dressed in a way I hadn't seen in years, the new dress fitting her figure. She locked the front door with a deliberate click, then turned. Her smile was wide, genuine, a smile I once thought was reserved for me. Henderson stepped forward. They met on the porch under the glow of the overhead light. He reached for her and she went willingly into his arms. Their kiss was warm, prolonged, a public display of intimacy that felt like a punch to the gut. The air seemed to chill around me. I raised my cell phone, the screen a small rectangle of light in the dim car interior, and captured the image. The timestamp would be useful. They broke apart, a comfortable ease between them, and entered the Mercedes. Henderson held the passenger door open for her, a gesture of old-fashioned chivalry. The car backed out of the driveway, the tires crunching softly on the gravel, then glided down the street. I waited a beat, let a few cars pass, then pulled away from the curb, keeping a safe distance behind the Mercedes. The drive through town was unremarkable. Henderson kept to the speed limit, a careful driver. I maintained 3 car lengths, occasionally letting another car pull between us, then closing the gap again. The streets were quiet for a Friday night, the usual small-town traffic patterns. He drove to the Horizon Hotel, the one on the edge of town, near the highway interchange. The parking lot was half full. He pulled into a space near the main entrance. I continued past, finding an empty spot several spaces away, partially obscured by a large pickup truck. I watched them exit the car. Henderson took Brenda's hand, then draped an arm casually around her shoulder. They walked toward the hotel entrance, their bodies close, moving as one. It wasn't a hesitant, furtive walk. It was open, familiar, comfortable. This was not a first encounter. This was a pattern. I took another photo, the digital image capturing their backs as they entered the hotel lobby. The angle wasn't perfect, but the intimacy was undeniable. My wife with another man. It suggested a long-term affair. The evidence was accumulating. I turned off the engine, listening to the quiet hum of the night. Further observation was necessary. I needed to see what happened inside. I pushed through the revolving glass doors of the Horizon Hotel, the cool evening air replaced by the artificial warmth of the lobby. My worn field jacket and camo hat, pulled low, felt out of place amidst the polished marble and hushed conversations. Sunglasses remained on, a barrier between my eyes and the curious glances. The lobby was softly lit, smelling faintly of disinfectant and stale coffee. My boots made no sound on the thick carpet. Near the reception desk, a freestanding information board listed the day's events. My gaze found it immediately. St. James Hospital Charity Ball, read the illuminated panel. 3rd floor, Grand Ballroom. The details were precise. I scanned the area for elevators, noting the security cameras positioned above the call buttons. An unnecessary risk. My objective was observation, not interaction. I located the main staircase, tucked away behind a potted palm. The climb was steady, 3 flights of carpeted stairs. Each step was a quiet calculation, a deliberate movement. My breathing remained even. Reaching the 3rd floor landing, the muted throb of a bass line and the faint murmur of voices guided me. The Grand Ballroom. I approached the entrance, a double door slightly ajar, casting a sliver of light onto the patterned hallway carpet. I positioned myself to the side, peering through the gap. The ballroom was large, decorated with white linens and floral arrangements. A live band played a slow number. Couples swayed on the dance floor. And there she was, Brenda. She was laughing, her head thrown back slightly, Roger Henderson's hand resting lightly on her lower back as they conversed with another couple. They looked natural together, a comfortable pair. My eyes narrowed, focusing on her left hand. The diamond, the gold band, the 2 rings I had given her were absent. Her finger was bare. It was a detail that solidified the facts I was gathering. I stepped back from the door, my jaw tight. The men's room was down the hall, marked by a small, polished brass plaque. I entered, the heavy door closing softly behind me. Inside, the quiet hum of the ventilation system was the only sound. I stood before the mirror, looking at my reflection. The camo hat, the sunglasses, the exhaustion etched around my eyes. This was not the way I had imagined coming home. I splashed cold water on my face, the chill a momentary anchor. My mission here was clear: gather irrefutable proof. Logic dictated the next steps. I needed to be inside. After perhaps 30 minutes, I pushed open the men's room door. The music from the ballroom seemed louder now. I adjusted my hat, straightened the collar of my fatigue jacket. The uniform, despite its casual nature, often commanded a certain unspoken deference. I walked directly to the ballroom entrance. A young woman in a black dress holding a clipboard was stationed at the door. She glanced at me, her expression momentarily confused by my attire. I met her gaze, offering nothing but a quiet presence. She seemed to register the uniform, the rank insignia on my shoulder, and simply nodded, stepping aside. No questions, no request for a ticket. I entered. The room was warmer than the hallway, filled with the murmur of conversation and the light clinking of silverware. I moved along the perimeter, keeping to the shadows. A large decorative pillar, faced with dark wood, offered an ideal vantage point. I positioned myself behind it, partially obscured, with a clear view of the dance floor and the surrounding tables. My presence seemed to go unnoticed. My eyes swept the room. It took a moment, But then I found them. Brenda and Roger Henderson were on the dance floor, moving slowly, their bodies pressed close. His hand was low on her back, his fingers resting on the curve of her hip. It was a possessive gesture, unhurried and intimate. Her head was near his shoulder, her posture relaxed. They were oblivious to anyone else. I drew my phone from my pocket, its camera already activated. The low light presented a challenge, but the image stabilization compensated. I took a series of photographs. A silent, methodical click. Each shot was a data point, an unassailable piece of evidence. The urge to simply walk onto the floor, to shatter the illusion, was a raw physical ache. I suppressed it. My training had taught me discipline. The music ended. They remained close, speaking quietly, then made their way back to a table near the window. As they sat, Henderson leaned in, his lips finding hers. A soft, lingering kiss. His hand reached for her arm, a gentle caress. Brenda responded, her smile soft, her eyes on his. I continued to photograph, framing each shot, capturing the natural progression of their affection. These were not stolen moments of passion, but the comfortable intimacy of a long-established relationship. The evidence was irrefutable. My mission inside was complete. The photographs were secured. I moved quietly toward the exit. The clipboard girl was still there, but she didn't look up as I passed. Once in the hallway, I found a cushioned bench near a fire exit, out of sight of the ballroom doors. The event would wind down gradually. I settled in for the wait. Military patience was a skill I had honed over years. 2 hours passed, the music softening, the crowd thinning. I watched the door, waiting. The ballroom doors finally opened again. It was almost midnight. Brenda and Roger emerged, their shoulders nearly touching, a low hum of conversation between them. Their faces were relaxed, illuminated by the recessed ceiling lights of the hallway. They turned, not towards the main lobby and the exit, but towards the bank of elevators. My position on the bench was shadowed, but I was still visible. They were too absorbed in each other to notice a man in a military uniform observing them. They pressed the call button. The elevator arrived quickly, the doors sliding open with a soft sigh. They stepped inside, their backs to me. Roger pressed a button on the control panel. I watched the illuminated numbers above the door. The elevator moved, then stopped. The 11th floor. The doors closed. The indicator light remained on the 11th floor. It did not descend. Their destination was upstairs. I rose from the bench. My next move was clear. Back to the lobby. The night attendant at the registration desk was a young woman, her eyes a little glazed, probably from the late hour. I approached the counter. "Excuse me," I said, my voice low and steady. I pulled out my wallet, extracting my government ID, an official National Guard card with my photo and rank. "I have an urgent message for Mayor Henderson. It's time sensitive." Her eyes widened slightly as she saw the card, then shifted to my uniform. "Mayor Henderson," she repeated, her voice a little unsure. "He's a guest here tonight." "Yes," I confirmed. "I understand he's staying on one of your upper floors. A matter of security." I didn't elaborate. The phrase security often prompted immediate cooperation. She hesitated, her gaze flickering between my ID and my face. "I'm not supposed to give out guest information," she began. "This is not a social call," I cut in, my tone firm but not aggressive. "He would want this information. It's critical." I let the silence hang, allowing the implication to settle. She chewed on her lip for a moment, then relented. "Okay," she said, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. "Room 1114, that's on the 11th floor." She looked up, her expression a mix of apprehension and relief at having complied. "Thank you," I said, collecting my ID. The number confirmed my observation of the elevator. Efficient. I walked to the elevators, the same bank Brenda and Roger had used. I pressed the call button. When the doors opened, I stepped Ishal alone Saina. The ascent was quick, silent. 11th floor. The doors opened onto a quiet hallway, carpeted in a muted floral pattern. The only sound was the distant hum of the building's systems. I found room 1114 easily. It was about halfway down the hall on the left. I walked past it, checking for any other signs of life in the corridor. Empty. I doubled back, stopping at the door. I placed my ear against the wood. Muffled voices. Soft, indistinct. Not enough. I needed more. My gaze traveled further down the hall. A stairwell door, marked with an exit sign, beckoned. This was a better vantage point. I walked to it, pushed the bar, and stepped inside. The stairwell was dimly lit, smelling faintly of concrete and dust. The door clicked shut, but before it could latch, I slipped a folded handkerchief into the mechanism. It would remain ajar, preventing the lock from fully engaging. This allowed me silent, unrestricted access without needing a keycard. I moved to the window on the 11th floor landing. It overlooked the hotel parking lot, but more importantly, it offered a clear, unobscured view of the hallway directly in front of room 1114. From here, I could observe anyone entering or exiting without being seen myself. The light from the hallway spilled faintly into the stairwell. I settled in, finding a comfortable spot against the concrete wall, out of the direct light. The wait began. Sarah's words echoed in my mind. Brenda's been out a lot, coming home very late. This confirmed the pattern. I had the location. Now I needed the full duration. Patience was key. The night was still young for some. The hallway remained quiet. The minutes stretched into hours. Around 1:30 a.m., I decided to verify my position. I pushed open the stairwell door, the handkerchief still holding it ajar, and stepped into the carpeted hall. My movements were silent, deliberate. I approached room 1114, my breath held. I pressed my ear against the wood panel once more. The faint, indistinct murmurs from earlier were now clearer. There were sounds, often rhythmic, a low, guttural moaning, unmistakable. The implications were stark, uncomfortable. I pulled out my cell phone. The audio recorder function was ready. I held it against the door, pressing record. The digital file would capture the undeniable. I kept it there for perhaps a minute, then retracted it, the evidence secured. The silence of the hallway now felt heavier. I returned to my post in the stairwell, resuming my vigil by the window. My composure maintained. Emotions were a luxury I could not afford in this phase of the operation. At 2:45 a.m., the door to room 1114 finally opened. Brenda and Roger Henderson emerged, both fully dressed. They looked refreshed, unhurried. Their conversation was muted, but their smiles were wide. They stepped out into the hallway, then paused, facing each other. Henderson reached out, pulling Brenda close. Their lips met in a long, lingering kiss, a deep, passionate exchange. It was a public display, yet entirely focused on each other. My phone was already in my hand. I raised it, focusing the lens, and captured the moment. The click of the shutter was imperceptible. As they broke apart, Brenda reached up, her fingers straightening Roger's tie, a small, intimate gesture born of familiarity. She patted his chest, her gaze still fixed on his. It was a clear, domestic interaction, utterly out of place for a married woman with a man who was not her husband. They walked to the elevators, pressed the down button, and disappeared behind the sliding doors. I waited a full minute, watching the indicator lights. The elevator descended to the lobby. Then I emerged from the stairwell. The lobby was empty now, the night attendant gone. I walked quickly, quietly to the main entrance. Roger's black Mercedes was pulling away from the curb, Brenda already in the passenger seat. I walked to my rental car, started the engine, and pulled out, maintaining the same careful distance as before. The drive back to the neighborhood was short. The streets were deserted now. The house is dark. At precisely 3:15 a.m., the Mercedes pulled into the driveway of my house. Roger Henderson stepped out, walked around, and opened the passenger door for Brenda. She got out, gave him a final quick hug, then walked towards the front door. He waited until she was inside, the porch light clicking off, before returning to his car. He backed out of the driveway and drove away. I remained parked half a block down, engine off, until his taillights disappeared around the corner. My rental car was a dark, anonymous shape in the pre-dawn quiet. I turned the ignition, the engine purring softly to life. My phone was still in my hand. I scrolled through the photos, the images stark and undeniable. The kiss on the porch, the intimacy at the ballroom, the prolonged kiss in the hotel hallway, Brenda straightening his tie. Then I played the audio recording. The muffled moans, a chilling soundtrack to the visual evidence. The facts were now complete. The proof was secured. I drove a few miles out of town to a budget motel I'd noticed on the highway, a nondescript place. I checked in, paid cash for a single night, and went to my room. The air inside was stale, smelling of disinfectant and cheap coffee. I placed my duffel bag on the floor, then sat on the edge of the bed. It was 3:45 a.m. Too early to do anything else. But I knew what my next step needed to be. I pulled out my phone again and began to search for private investigator services. I located one with good reviews, focused on domestic cases. I found the contact number and sent a discreet email request mentioning the need for immediate surveillance. I specified a female investigator, a Beth, if available. Another set of eyes would confirm the pattern. The motel room was still, the morning light thin through the cheap curtains. I spent the early hours reviewing everything. The photos, the audio files, the timestamps. Each piece of evidence was sorted, organized, and cataloged. This was no longer just an observation. It was a dossier. My mind was clear, focused. I made a call to Mr. Davies' office. He was a local divorce attorney, known for his methodical approach. His secretary, after hearing the urgency in my voice and the mention of military leave, scheduled an appointment for later that morning. An hour was all I needed. At Mr. Davies' office, the waiting room was quiet, sterile. I carried a plain envelope. When called, I entered his office, a spacious room filled with leather-bound books and a large oak desk. Mr. Davies was a man in his late 50s, his movements precise, his expression neutral. I sat opposite him and laid the envelope on his desk. Mr. Davies, I began, I need to file for divorce. I have the evidence to support my claim. I pushed the envelope across the desk. He opened it, his eyes scanning the contents. The photos, printed cleanly, showed Brenda with Roger Henderson, the porch kiss, the ballroom intimacy, the hotel hallway embrace, the tie adjustment. He nodded slowly, his expression unchanging. I then produced my phone and played the audio recording from room 1114. The faint, undeniable sounds filled the quiet office for a moment before I stopped it. "This is clear, Major," Mr. Davies said, his voice calm. "Undeniable infidelity. This will be straightforward." He laid out the legal strategy, focusing on documenting Brenda's actions. We discussed the division of assets, the house, and the implications for Sarah. My priority was Sarah's well-being. "I want full custody," I stated. "She needs stability." Mr. Davies assured me this was achievable given the circumstances. Before leaving, I sent a text to Beth, the private investigator, confirming her assignment. "Continue surveillance on Brenda and Roger Henderson. Document all interactions, times, and locations. Detailed reports." The pattern needed to be irrefutable. My next call was to Sarah. "I'm picking you up from school today," I told her. "We need to talk." Her voice was small, apprehensive. "Is everything okay, Dad?" she asked. "It will be," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm home, and I'm going to make sure things are set right." I waited outside her school, the rental car nondescript in the line of parent vehicles. When she emerged, she looked tired, her shoulders slumped. She saw me, and a flicker of relief crossed her face. She climbed into the passenger seat. "Sarah," I said, starting the car, "I have something to tell you. It's about your mother and me, and about Roger Henderson." I laid out the facts, calmly, directly, omitting the explicit details from the hotel room, but making it clear that Brenda had been involved in an affair. I explained that this meant changes, a new arrangement, but assured her of my constant presence and support. Her face remained carefully blank, but her hands gripped her backpack straps tightly. It was a lot for a child to process. I kept talking, reiterating that she was my priority. "Stick around to the end to see how life's costly choices unfold." We arrived at the house. I parked the car. Brenda was not home yet. The silence in the house was heavy as Sarah went to her room. I waited in the living room, the envelope of evidence on the coffee table. The minutes ticked by, slow and deliberate. Brenda's car pulled into the driveway at 4:30 p.m. The front door opened and she walked in, her purse slung over her shoulder. She stopped short, seeing me. Her eyes widened, a flicker of surprise, then something else, a defensive stiffness. "Frank," she said, her voice a little too casual. "You're home. Why didn't you call?" "I needed to see some things for myself," I said, my voice even. I picked up the envelope from the coffee table, holding it out. "I know about Roger Henderson, Brenda, and I have the proof." Her face paled. "Proof? What are you talking about? Nothing's going on." She tried to dismiss it, a slight shake of her head. "We're just friends, Frank. You're overreacting." I walked to the kitchen counter where I'd placed a small, portable speaker. I connected my phone to it, then played the audio recordings. The faint moans, clear enough now to be undeniable, filled the quiet room. Her eyes darted to the speaker, then back to me, her jaw slack. Then I displayed the photos on my phone, scrolling through them one by one. The kisses, the intimate gestures, the bare ring finger. Shock gave way to anger. Her face flushed. You spied on me? She hissed, her voice rising. You followed me? I gathered facts, I corrected, my voice still calm. The evidence is clear, Brenda. I'm filing for divorce on grounds of infidelity. She stared at me, her chest heaving. For a long moment, she said nothing, just looked at the pictures, then at my face. Her eyes were hard, filled with a sudden cold fury. Without another word, she turned, snatched her car keys from the hook by the door and walked out. The front door slammed shut. I heard the Mercedes start, tires squealing as she backed out of the driveway and sped away, heading to an unknown destination. The next morning, Mr. Davies received the call. Mrs. Albright, Brenda's lawyer, was initiating contact. The negotiations had begun. Mr. Davies moved quickly, formally filing the petition for divorce, citing documented marital misconduct. The legal process was now in motion, a series of calculated steps. Beth's comprehensive report arrived a few days later. It detailed Brenda's continued activities with Roger Henderson, more hotel visits, dinners, weekend trips to a cabin in a neighboring county. The documentation was thorough, precise, supported by dated photographs and GPS coordinates. It painted a clear picture of an ongoing, flagrant affair. Mr. Davies and I reviewed the report in his office. He highlighted key sections, identifying further evidence that would strengthen our case. This is exactly what we needed, Major, he stated, tapping a finger on a photograph of Brenda and Roger entering a bed and breakfast. Confirms the pattern, refutes any claim of a brief indiscretion. A temporary restraining order was swiftly issued by the court. It froze all marital assets, preventing Brenda from selling or transferring anything without court approval. This was a crucial step to protect our joint finances. During the discovery phase, the financial records began to reveal more. My legal team uncovered specific expenditures. There were large cash withdrawals, expensive gifts, and unexplained charges on our joint credit cards. Mr. Davies pointed to a Rolex watch, a high-end fishing reel, a weekend getaway to a resort town, all purchased within the last 6 months. These appear to be gifts for Mr. Henderson, Major, he stated, paid for with marital funds. I instructed Mr. Davies to initiate a full forensic accounting of all joint assets. Every dollar spent, every transaction, every transfer would be meticulously tracked. The aim was to quantify the financial damage caused by Brenda's infidelity. Brenda's strategy through Mrs. Albright became clear. They attempted to portray me as an unstable individual, prone to jealousy and paranoia, my judgment compromised by my recent military deployment. They suggested my time in Afghanistan had left me emotionally scarred, that my accusations were a result of a fragile mental state. It was a common tactic designed to undermine my credibility. My service record, however, was impeccable. I had several commendations, an honorable discharge, and a clean mental health history from the military. Mr. Davies assembled a robust defense, including character references from my commanding officers and fellow soldiers. Their testimonies painted a picture of a stable, logical, and disciplined individual, directly countering Brenda's narrative. The most important piece of evidence came from Sarah. A court-appointed counselor conducted several sessions with her. Sarah, in her quiet, deliberate way, expressed her desire to live with me. She stated that I provided stability, that she felt safe with me, and that she wanted to continue living in the house we shared. The counselor's report was submitted to the court. Based on Sarah's statement and the overwhelming evidence of marital misconduct, the court awarded temporary sole physical custody of Sarah to me. Brenda was granted supervised visitation, a clear indication of the judge's concern regarding her choices and priorities. It was a significant victory. Mr. Davies then filed a motion to depose Roger Henderson. His involvement was now undeniable, and the financial implications of Brenda's actions made his testimony essential. Roger Henderson's legal team immediately attempted to quash the deposition, citing privacy concerns, potential political damage to his mayoral office, and claiming he was merely a friend. Judge Thompson, however, saw through the obfuscation. After reviewing the evidence, including the PI report and the financial irregularities, he ordered Roger Henderson to appear. Mr. Henderson's relationship with the defendant is clearly relevant to the marital assets and the claims of infidelity, Judge Thompson stated from the bench. His testimony is required. The date was set. Finally, Mr. Davies secured a court order. Due to Brenda's documented marital misconduct and her flagrant misuse of marital funds, the court ordered her to reimburse me for all investigation and legal fees incurred. The costs of uncovering her betrayal would now fall squarely on her. It was a cold, hard justice. Roger Henderson's deposition was held in a stark conference room at the courthouse, far from the public eye. He arrived with his own legal counsel, his usual confident demeanor somewhat muted by the gravity of the situation. Mr. Davies led the questioning, precise and unrelenting. Henderson, under oath, eventually confirmed significant financial contributions to Brenda, cash gifts, covering hotel stays, payments towards what he called her expenses. He tried to frame these as acts of generosity to a friend, but the dates and amounts coincided too perfectly with the forensic accounting findings. The record now officially detailed the depth of his involvement and the extent of marital funds diverted. Judge Thompson reviewed the comprehensive file. My initial photographic and audio evidence, Beth's detailed surveillance reports, the forensic accounting of misused marital assets, Sarah's statement, and now Roger Henderson's deposition. The weight of the evidence was undeniable. There was no ambiguity. The facts were clear, meticulously documented. Brenda's legal Brenda's legal team, led by Mrs. Albright, had fought hard, but the tide had turned irrevocably. Facing insurmountable evidence, particularly the financial misconduct and Henderson's confirmed contributions, Mrs. Albright advised Brenda to accept a settlement. The alternative was a protracted trial with even more damaging public revelations and a near certain unfavorable ruling. Brenda resisted initially, her anger still evident, but eventually, the logic of her untenable position forced her hand. The divorce was finalized a few weeks later in a quiet court session. The final decree was succinct. Frank was granted sole legal and physical custody of Sarah. The court recognized the stability I offered in Sarah's clearly expressed wishes, which were corroborated by the court counselor. Brenda was awarded a minimal share of the marital assets, significantly impacted by the proven financial misconduct. The judge specifically cited the use of joint funds for gifts to Roger Henderson and the deliberate concealment of these expenditures as a factor in the division. It was a cold, equitable division based squarely on her actions. Furthermore, the court ordered that all legal and private investigation expenses, detailed meticulously by Mr. Davies, were to be reimbursed to me directly from Brenda's awarded portion of the marital assets. It was a financial consequence directly tied to her choices. The total amounted to a significant sum, ensuring that the cost of uncovering the truth and securing justice did not fall on me. The fallout for Roger Henderson was swift and public. The details revealed in the deposition, particularly his financial involvement, were leaked to the local press. The mayor, a man who had built his career on an image of civic responsibility and family values, now faced intense public scrutiny. There were immediate calls for his resignation, investigations into his conduct, and a clear, indelible stain on his political career. His public appearances became rare, his influence in community matters waning rapidly. The moral consequences extended far beyond the courtroom, touching every aspect of his professional life. Sarah and I began rebuilding our lives immediately. The old marital home, once a symbol of what I thought we had, became a monument to what was lost. I put it on the market. It sold quickly, the transaction handled by Mr. Davies' office. The proceeds, after Brenda's diminished share in reimbursements, were more than enough to start fresh. We found a new house in a different part of town, still within Sarah's school district, but a new space, untouched by the past, free of the memories and the lies. Sarah thrived in her new environment. She adjusted to her new school with remarkable resilience, made new friends, and began to reclaim a sense of normalcy and joy. Her laughter, once infrequent and strained, returned to the house. My focus was entirely on her stability and happiness, providing the quiet, consistent presence and unwavering support she needed. Her supervised visitations with Brenda were infrequent, strained, and usually brief, further cementing the emotional distance that had grown between them. I established a new financial plan, simple and robust, securing our future. Every expense was tracked, every investment carefully considered. There were no hidden accounts, no unexplained withdrawals. It was a transparent and secure foundation for our new life. Reflecting on the entire process, the logical steps taken to uncover the truth felt justified. Each piece of evidence, from the initial phone call from Sarah to the final deposition, built a methodical, undeniable case. There was no room for emotion in the collection of data, only fact. And that factual progression led to a clear form of justice. There was a quiet peace in the moral consequences exacted upon Brenda and Roger. Not a triumphant vengeance, but a profound sense of accountability. They had made choices, and those choices had led to specific, undeniable outcomes. I embraced my role as a single father, a protector, a provider of stability. Sarah was my purpose now, and her well-being was the only measure of success that truly mattered. The investigation's cold, logical progression had led to a clear, albeit painful resolution, allowing for a new, honest beginning. The fallout from Brenda's betrayal wasn't just a legal matter. It carved deep, indelible lines into the landscape of our lives. For Brenda, the consequences were stark. The complete loss of her family unit, the public humiliation of her affair laid bare in court, and a significantly diminished financial future, a direct result of her own deceptive actions and the judge's ruling. Her pursuit of fleeting desires cost her everything she once had, leaving her with the bitter taste of isolation and the crushing weight of public judgment and personal regret. Roger Henderson, too, faced the erosion of his public image and political standing, his name now synonymous with scandal rather than leadership. His career prospects, once bright, dimmed considerably as the community grappled with the revelations of his private conduct. Their choices, made in the shadows of assumed secrecy, were brought into the unflinching, harsh light of the courthouse, exacting a heavy, undeniable toll on their personal and professional lives. But for Sarah and me, the methodical unearthing of the truth, painful as it was in its raw honesty, ultimately became the foundation for a new, honest existence. It was a testament to the fact that while betrayal can shatter trust into irreparable fragments, a cold, logical pursuit of truth can, in time, forge a path to healing and about a profound, hard-won peace.